Hello, everybody. This is Brother Nero, and this is our new podcast called the Devil's Mark Ministry Podcast. And I'm here with my co-host, Julia Blair, and she's the editor of the Shadow Path Journal. And what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about the ministry and some of the things we have coming up. But I'm also going to use this as an opportunity to introduce you to our staff, or our leadership team, as I like to call it. And I just want her to do most of the talking in this episode so that you can get to know her. You already know me. And it's very important that you get to know the members of the ministry that are helping me do this. I want to make it clear to everyone that this is not just a Brother Nero thing. This is not the cult of Nero. It is an actual organization that we're starting here. So, hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So why don't we start by having you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got into to this religion and to diabolism and what your thoughts are about it.
Well, I mean, I've been working with the ministry since about last fall, and I've been a diabolist for almost a year and a half now. Before that, I was more or less pagan since I was about 12. I started out with Wicca and then kind of went into more of an eclectic pagan thing. But it never really clicked with me until I found diabolism. And it's kind of just grown from there. And I found the ministry through the Dark Illumination Report podcast. And I was just really interested in the work you were doing. And I kind of just wanted to get involved to, help build some community and be a little bit more involved in my religion.
Yeah. So can you tell everybody a little bit about your first experience with Satan, with Dad, and how you came to be interested in him and who he is to you?
Well, yeah, it was interesting because before I got into diabolism, I don't know whether I ever really believed in Satan, but there was one day towards the end of 2019 that I just kind of got the impulse to walk down to my local witch shop, Botanica, and go and look at the necklaces that they had there. And I have no idea why. But, I'm not one to pass up a trip to the local witch shop. So I did. And I was looking at them and I found the sigil of Lucifer and the sigil of Baphomet. And I looked at it and it was just like this impulse said, this is what I need in my practice. This is what I've been looking for. And so I was completely confused, but I got one of the sigils and I started researching, and it was, it kind of, it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, and you had some experiences that kind of convinced you that Satan existed, right?
Yeah, and I won't go into too much detail with those, but it was like I started out with taking a very agnostic view of religion, but as little coincidences started to line up and things that I'd been writing about and praying about started to become more a part of my life, and then the people I loved started to get swept up into it, and then it started to be like, yeah, okay, there's something more to this than I previously gave it credit for.
Yeah, one of the things you told me was that you realized that the things that I was talking about on the podcast about the synchronicities and the little things falling into place like puzzle pieces, it does happen like that. And that is the way that Dad kind of operates. And you found that to be true. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the things that you were talking about in the podcast, it was kind of like, this sounds awfully familiar.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit about, about what we're going to be doing in the podcast. You want to kind of go through some of the things we're working on for the newsletter and what we hope to do with the newsletter, since that's kind of your main thing?
Yeah, sure. So the newsletter is still really taking shape, even though we've got a couple of issues out now. And it's kind of exciting to see because, as we go, it's kind of constantly evolving and we're getting a feel for what people want to see. And we want to make sure that it's relevant and informative to practitioners of Shadow Path diabolism, but we also want to try and make it something that will teach others about the tradition who might not know about it. Eventually, what we want to do is we want to make a nice balance of different subjects, so history, spirituality, education, family, social matters, and self-development, things like that. eventually what we want to do is open it up and take some submissions from others. So, if that's something you'd be interested in the future, if you enjoy writing, or if you're an artist or a photographer, and you think you might be interested in creating some original content to help us out, you should contact us, get in touch. It's volunteer only right now, but for me personally, it's a good way to get more involved in the religious community. And it's kind of something I've almost enjoyed making into a part of my own practice by offering my time and creativity as a service to Satan. So if you are a creative or a writer and you feel like that might be something you're interested in, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So what do you say to people who say, well, I don't know if I'm a great writer. I don't know if I'm a great artist. I don't know if my stuff is good enough to submit. What do you have to say to those people?
Well, I would say that, one, you're probably your own harshest critic, and two, it doesn't necessarily matter. You should get in touch with us and see what we say if you're curious about it. Writing can be edited for grammar and clarity if you have a good grasp of structure and the principles that we teach. Then I would say that you're probably more suited to it than you think. And as far as art goes, we're interested in pretty much all levels of skill. If your art is a reflection of your practice, of your spirituality, then it's interesting. We want to see it. We want to see whether it be something we want to include.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't think people realize, is that I really do want to take the journal and turn it into a public newsletter and a print newsletter and actually start paying people for their articles. I want it to be a professional newsletter. That's one of our major projects as a ministry. We're just trying to get our feet wet and trying to get a feel for how the newsletter is going to develop. Like you said, it's still taking shape. And I think there are going to be times when we're going to do things that maybe some of the people don't necessarily like as much. Some issues are going to be better than others. Some issues are going to be less religious than others. Some are going to be more religious than others. We're trying to get a feel for the proper balance. And that's one of the reasons we're doing it on Patreon right now, is that we're trying to get a feel for how we work as a team, what kind of content our audience wants. And when we get a feel for what the newsletter is supposed to be, then we're going to take it public and try to make it like our main vehicle for communicating the message of the ministry. I think that's very important for people to understand. We're very cloistered right now. We're a very small group, and we're doing things privately in the Patreon page, but we're not going to stay that way. It's just the initial launch of the ministry. We do want to be a public offline organization. We're very serious about that. And I think everybody that works with the ministry, yourself and Mo Batchelor, you all know what my plans are. And you know that we intend to be an offline group more than an online group. And that's very important that we make that clear on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also want to hear if you guys have any feedback on what we're doing on the newsletter. If there's any specific content you'd like to see more of, please do let us know. Everything that we hear from you guys will help us shape ourselves, and it will really help us develop this into something that everyone can benefit from.
Yeah, and I've also told both you and Mo, and you can confirm this, that if there's something that we're doing that is detrimental to spreading this message, then you and Mo have total freedom to express your opinion about it. I don't, this is not a dictatorship. It's not, as I always tell you guys, it's not the cult of Nero. The reason I say that a lot, and the reason I use that phrase in particular, is because a lot of satanic groups, a lot of religious groups, it becomes a cult of personality. It becomes about the founder. And I want this ministry to be about the religion, to be about the gods. I'm very proud of being the founder, and I do want to leave a legacy, and I do want to be remembered for my contributions to diabolism, to Satanism, but I want this to be a tradition that stands on its own 2 feet and is not based on what one person has to say. I want it to take shape and develop, and it to be its own thing and to have its own identity and its own culture. And the way you do that is you got to let everybody have a voice. It can't just be one person's ideas, one person's thoughts. So that's one of the reasons why we want to encourage the patrons to contribute to the newsletter and make the newsletter something that they can be proud of and make the ministry something they can be proud of. It's very important because without community, you don't have anything. It means nothing, you know?
Absolutely.
So is there the next topic you wanted to bring up? I know you wrote down a list of things you wanted to talk about.
I did, yes. I wanted to mention the websites that we're working on. As some of you probably know, we've got two websites we're working on at the moment. One of them is the ministry website, which is devilsmarkministries.org. And that's going to be somewhere where we have mostly spiritual and ministry related content. So, articles on practice, ministry news, things like that. The other one is shadowpathjournal.com. Which is going to be mostly newsletter related at the moment, but eventually we want to use that to provide news that's relevant to Shadowpath Diabolists. And to be honest, hopefully anyone who follows a Diabolist or theistic Satanist tradition. We want our focus to be mainly on followers of Shadowpath Diabolism, but we don't necessarily want to stop there. We fully believe in freedom of belief, and following the path that's correct for you. So if others who might practice a little differently can make use of what we publish, so much the better. And we eventually want to have some fun stuff up on the Shadowpath Journal website as well. We've got a couple of ideas for that are slowly taking shape.
We're by no means finished. We're just getting started. We're really working on the infrastructure of this organization. And for the first 9 months to a year, that's what we're going to be doing. And I know for a lot of the patrons, they don't realize how much is changing behind the scenes, because to them, nothing's changed. It's basically just the Patreon page. But for us, there's all kinds of legal and business obligations now. So there's all kinds of things going on that has no direct impact on what they see, but we have to take care of, like licensing and that sort of thing now that we're a legal organization. So that's one of the reasons why the podcast hasn't been as frequent as it has been in the past. But we're going to try to correct that. And that's what this podcast is about, trying to give you more content so that you get a good value for your buck, Yeah. And the other thing I want to mention, just as a little side note, I've had a lot of stuff happen personally in the last month or the last 3 weeks or so. I've had, we had the freeze come through and all the pipes in my house froze and busted. And I do mean every single pipe. I was without water for 3 weeks and they had to replace all my plumbing, all of it in my entire house. Then the day they finished fixing the plumbing, I had a drunk driver drive through my yard, miss my gas meter, gas pipe by about 3 inches, and stop about a foot short from coming through my bedroom in my house, which is the very location where I'm recording this podcast right now. So the police were basically saying, look, if he would have hit that gas pipe, it would have blown up the whole block, probably. And then not only that, but if he managed to hit the gas pipe, he probably would have went through my bedroom with the car. So I'm kind of lucky to be alive, to be honest. That's one of the reasons why things have been delayed, but there's also been a lot of business stuff. I'm not using any of that as a real excuse for not doing what I'm supposed to do. I feel like I've kind of let the patrons down a little bit because I haven't really been putting the content that I need to. But we're going to try to correct that from now on.
Nero's been involved in doing a lot of stuff to make sure that the websites are getting the hits on Google that they need to be, making sure, all the boring behind the scenes stuff that you guys don't necessarily see. So it's, we're doing some really important groundwork here. And as soon as that's all laid, then the content is going to pick up and become a little bit more interesting as we start to get into it.
Yeah, we do have plans for a lot more religious content coming. We had a business meeting last week where we were talking about putting up new content on the ministry page for new diabolists and stuff, people that needed ritual ideas and help with basic knowledge. And we're working on all that. So please bear with us and just know that we're not finished. We're just getting started. It's going to take some time, but we're working really hard on it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the first year is going to be mainly focused on building the infrastructure and business side of the ministry. But our goal for some future content is to be able to, at the very least, create some guidelines for people who are new to this sort of religious path. Like, we want to put out some basic instructional articles and some videos for anyone who wants ideas for rituals, or for people who might have to practice in secret, or even just for people who are completely brand new and are totally confused by the sheer amount of information there is out there on satanic religions, because there's a lot, and a lot of it contradicts itself. So we want to talk about how you can do some research and develop your practice amid, everyone saying something different.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And that's something else I think we should bring up about the ministry. We're not trying to get in other people's business. We're trying to stay out of other people's business. We don't go out of our way to get involved in other organizations' business or criticize other organizations. If we have an issue with them on a religious issue, we will raise that issue and we'll talk about that issue and we'll say what we disagree with them. But what we're trying to do is stay focused on the religious issues. We're not going to talk about people's mama, their dog, or their weight, or their appearance, or where they live, or, that kind of thing. We're not going to pick on them about something about their life. If we disagree with somebody, it's going to be a religious argument. And that's all it's going to be. And we're not going to go on their page or their social media accounts and troll them. We don't do that. Professional people, adults, don't act that way. They don't behave that way. And we really want to encourage our members to rise above all that stuff and not do that stuff. Professional organizations don't behave that way. We want to try to eliminate that kind of nonsense in this ministry. And so we really want to encourage people to just rise above it and just be better people and be focused on practicing your own path and respecting other people's right to practice their path. The organizations that we do tend to criticize are the organizations that insist on trying to impose their definition of Satanism on other people. For example, the big example of that is the Church of Satan. They're not happy just doing their own thing. They want to impose their belief system and their definition of Satanism on other people. That's one of the reasons we have an issue with them. It's not what they believe. It's the fact that they want to impose their ideas on everyone else and tell everyone else how to live. And we believe in maximum freedom. And, we believe that Satan gave you free will and self-awareness. And nobody has the right to infringe on your freedom of speech and your ability to practice as you choose, except Satan himself. And anybody who tries to do that, whether it's a government agency, whether it's an organization, whether it's a multinational corporation, it's wrong. And we try to promote free speech and tolerance of different ideas.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
A big thing with us. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, absolutely. We want to make sure that we're building things up rather than trying to tear other people down, because we're not interested in that. Everyone's path is going to look different. And, for my own personal beliefs, the gods are not a static thing that you can pin down in one particular way. So, what works for one person may not work for somebody else. So we don't want to get in the way of anyone's individual practices unless, what they're saying is tearing down what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And our basic thing is, if you're not hurting anyone, if you're not infringing on someone else's free will, then you should have the freedom to live the way you want to live and do what you want to do without interference. And I know that Mo also agrees with that. We're all in agreement on what the basic principles are as far as, non-interference. We don't believe in interfering with other people as long as they're not infringing on the rights of other people to live as they choose. And once an organization or a business decides to infringe upon the free speech of others, that's when we have an issue with them. Like, for example, with the things that are going on in, where is it? Is it Portugal? Or is it Peru?
Was it the blasphemy laws? I think that was in Poland.
Poland, yeah. And see, that kind of thing. As I've stated many times on my podcast, I'm not the biggest fan of black metal, and I think I have some negative opinions about the way black metal influences Satanism. But in this particular case, I'll stand with these black metal artists and we'll defend them and we'll write articles in defense of them, because you have governments that are going out of their way to try to infringe upon the rights of musicians and artists. And like I said, one of our core religious principles is that Satan gave mankind free will and self-awareness, and nobody has the right to take that away except the gods themselves. So anybody that does that, anybody that tries to take away someone's right to free speech and expression, that's intolerable. It's almost a sin in shadow path diabolism. And we just wouldn't tolerate it. We don't accept it, and we try to fight it. So civil rights are going to become a very big part of this organization in the future.
Yeah. And one of the ways that...
bring up. Did you have something you wanted to say about that?
Yes, and one of the ways you guys can help us is if you find news about this sort of stuff and things that you think could do with being brought to our attention, send it to us. There's no harm in dropping us an email or a comment on one of our social media accounts and saying, hey, look at this might be of interest to the ministry. So, if you run across anything in your travels of the internet that you think might be useful, please pass it along.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, see, the thing is, unless we stand up against this kind of stuff, they're just going to keep doing it. And they tend to pick on Satanists and diabolists. They tend to pick on people who they feel are defenseless. They tend to attack us because they feel like we can't do anything about it. And one of the things that I hope that eventually we'll be able to do with this ministry is we'll be able to become a voice for the people that are more religious in their belief in Satan and more, and have more beliefs that are similar to ours, so that they will have somebody that will stand up for them. And that's one of the reasons why we want to build our membership, so that we can give a voice to those people who don't have a voice right now. Other religious Satanists, other religious diabolists, whatever, whatever tradition you follow. That's the other thing. I mean, people think that you must follow shadow path diabolism for us to help you. That's not true at all. In fact, one of the things I hope to do in the future as well is to provide general services for people, like baptisms and funerals, for anybody who happens to be of a religious Satanism tradition. They don't have to be a shadow path diabolist. What we hope to do is be able to provide religious services for anybody who's just respectful of our tradition. And we hope that the services will be generic enough that we'll be able to provide them for people that may not agree with everything we believe, but we still want to be able to provide that for them. I mean, we believe that's what the ministry is supposed to be, is a ministry. You're supposed to minister to people. You're not supposed to sit there in judgment of everybody all the time. And you don't have to have people agree with everything you want to do or everything you believe in order to provide services for them. The way I see it, our job is to serve Satan's children. And that's our job. It's not our job to judge everything they do and make sure that everybody agrees with us and all the boxes are checked. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So anyway, what's the next thing you wanted to bring up?
I just wanted to reiterate that we really welcome feedback. We welcome suggestions. Even if you'd just like to reach out and say hi, we want to hear from you. We want to engage with people in the ministry. We don't, we want to make sure that you're getting as much out of this as you can. And if you'd like to get into contact with us, you can email either of us. Nero's email address is rj@devilsmarkministries.com, and mine is just editor@devilsmarkministries.com. And you can also find both of those and our contact information on the Shadow Path Journal site if you need. We've also got a ministry Facebook page, Twitter page, YouTube channel, and Instagram, and a few others. Those are all listed on the ministry website. Or you can as of now, you can generally just Google Devil's Mark Ministries or search for Devil's Mark Ministries on any of the major social media platforms, and you'll probably find us. And if you guys really want to help out and you just want to help out in a small way, you can do that really easily by liking and following us on social media. We're really excited about what we're building, and we're working really hard to make sure that we're putting some content out that'll be useful to you all. And, just keep an eye on the websites and the social media, because we've got a lot more planned besides the newsletter. And I'm personally super excited about everything that we're working on, and it's going to be great to see all of this take shape. I'm really hoping that everybody else is just as excited to see it as I am.
I know that Mo is excited as well. We have some plans. Like I said, I think I mentioned it on the Dark Illumination Report podcast. We have some public events coming up, and we're planning on doing 3 public events, and the first 2 are not going to be announced. They're not going to be promoted. We're just going to do them so that the leadership team, specifically Julia and Mo, can actually work on putting some presentations together. They're going to go out and pass out some flyers and some pamphlets and some information about the ministry in public. So we're not going to announce them, because we want to just give them a chance to get their feet wet and kind of get a feel for what that's going to be like, because they've never done it before. I've done it before in the past with other groups that I've been in, so I kind of have some experience with that, and I just want them to have an opportunity to get the experience without having the pressure of having to perform for potential members or media or anything like that. So we want to kind of keep it on the down low. So we're going to do 2 events like that, and we're going to, obviously, once we do those events, we're going to post them on our social media, pictures and things like that, so you can see what we're doing. But then the 3rd event, we're probably going to make more public and announce it, and anybody who wants to show up can, if you're in the area where it's happening. And we're also probably going to promote it to the media a little bit as well. So that's kind of the plan going forward. And we're really looking forward to that. We're very excited about that as well. I think that's about it, unless you have something else that we've left off.
No, I think that's about everything that I had in mind to cover.
Yeah, I think that's about it. So I think we'll wrap up this episode, but I hope it's been informative. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. May Satan be with you. Take care, everybody.